This is One on One. Noah Rauch is Senior Vice President of Education and Public Programs, National September 11th Memorial and Museum. Good to see you, Noah.
Thanks for having me.
For those who have not been there, describe this extraordinary place.
It's incredibly powerful, and it's a place where you can't quite capture the scale in words. I've worked on the project for a little over 8 years, and sort of in the time that I was working on it before it was open to the public, you know, my friends and people coming up saying, "What's taking so long?" And it's hard to sort of capture what's down there. It's located at the World Trade Center, at the foundations of the Twin Towers, where they were anchored into bedrock. So the memorial stands at street level, and it serves as a roof to the museum, which is below 70 feet below the memorial, and it tells the history of what happened, and also memorializes the almost 3,000 victims of the attacks.
You know, as we enter 2019, this program will be seen in 19. Do you think it's harder to get people engaged and understand the significance of that day and everything that it has meant to so many?
You know, it's something that we think about all the time, certainly within education programs. You know, 17 years later now, you know, it's hard to understand the world we're living in today without understanding what happened on that day. And we found that we needed to ground people in what happened that day to understand the ongoing legacy. And you mentioned, you know, the ongoing health effects of those who came to work in the rescue and recovery efforts. I mean, you've had over 2,000 people die from being exposed to the air down there as they were volunteering their time and helping rescue and recover those who were caught up in the collapse. And so that's an ongoing story and something that we're, you know, very much involved with and want to bring to the forefront.
How do you do it, Noah? Give a couple examples of how you do that. How do you
bring
it?
As one example, there's been evolution of Memorial this spring with a new what's called Morial Glade, which will honor those.
Memorial Glade.
Glade, which will be a new section on the memorial, which will honor those who came, many of which who gave their lives to those rescue and recovery efforts.
We're looking at renderings of what it's going to be like?
That's right. So it's designed also by Michael Arad, who was the architect of the memorial. And because this is so much part of the story and an ongoing legacy, which we weren't, you know, as aware of when the memorial first opened, it was a logical extension of the memorial.
How'd you get involved?
You know, I've been working in museums for quite a while. I was living out in California, and it's rare in the museum world to be able to be somewhere from the beginning, and especially working on such a meaningful project. As I sort of said before, it's hard to understand the world we're living in today without understanding what happened on that Tuesday morning. And so being able to help others understand it and help especially those who weren't alive anymore understand it, I found incredibly meaningful.
So I tell you, we have 3 younger children of 16, 14, and a little girl who's 8. None of them were alive. Yeah. An 8-year-old child comes there, little boy, little girl. How do they experience it? Is it possible for them to experience it without creating whatever it is people are afraid we're going to create?
You know, there's a series of, you know, the museum, when you walk into the museum, you're not faced with the most graphic material. The stories that are told in the museum are entry points into the different stories that happen that day. And so within our education programs, and we have a variety of them, whether they're for schools, whether they're for families who are coming to visit the museum, that offer artifacts and primarily art-based entry points to understand some of those things.
Excuse me, you keep art-based entry points. I'm
art-based
sorry,
entry points.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, so we have many pieces of art, things that were created in the aftermath of the attacks. We have exhibitions up in our education center around dogs and 9/11. We have stories around a member of the Maasai who donated a cow, and his village ended up donating 14 cows to the people of America. That was what they could give in that moment. And this, you know, these stories over and over again of people doing whatever they could to help in the aftermath, whether they're a member of the Maasai, whether they're an iron worker, an asbestos worker, whether they were sort of in the towers themselves. And so using those stories of how people responded to the unfathomable, oftentimes, of those entry points that brings children in. You know, helping parents and caregivers have those conversations with them in our classroom.
So you actually teach parents, parents, teachers, those of us who interact with children, how to talk about it?
Yeah, we do both of those. And so we have a whole series of professional development for teachers who are tasked in their classroom. You know, September 11th comes at the very beginning of the school year. It's hard enough in those first couple weeks of school, let alone talking about something that's so.
And many don't, by the way. I've asked about this. Many do not.
That's right. And to be honest, it's understandable. It's emotional, it's complex, it's difficult. You don't want to say the wrong thing. And so we have a whole series of workshops for teachers to be able to do that in their classroom, not just around the anniversary, but throughout the school year. We also have a program on the anniversary that really uses firsthand voices. And this is what we found is incredibly powerful. Because the attacks are 17 years ago, students, just like your children, they don't have a lived memory. And so they need something to hold on to. You can't wrap your head around 3,000 victims. You can sort of connect with the individual. And so that's what we do. And so every year on the anniversary, we have programs that are interactive with students around the country. We had almost 200,000 take part this past year where they're able to engage with that story.
There was one really powerful, where did I see it? Help me on this. No, it was at the comeback season exhibit. Who put this on the air? What network put it on the air? There was
ESPN.
ESPN did. There was a conference. I'm sorry, pick it up.
No, that's right. So we had a program with ESPN that highlighted this exhibition, which looked at sports, which is a site of ritual for Americans.
That's right.
And in the aftermath of 9/11, it became a space where people can come together again and appreciate life together in a way.
The Yankees were a part of it.
They were in the World Series, in a very
That's right.
famous World Series against the Diamondbacks, where President Bush threw out that famous first pitch at Yankee Stadium.
That strike.
Perfect pitch. And so it is something that people remember sort of coming together in a way that they weren't really able to at that point in the couple months preceding.
Noah, thank you and thank all of your colleagues for what you're doing at the National September 11th Memorial and Museum. Noah Rauch, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. This special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by New Jersey Sharing Network, RWJ Barnabas Health, PSE&G, the Turl Fund, supporting Right from the Start NJ, NJIT, MD Advantage Insurance Company of New Jersey, and by Wells Fargo. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.